Okay, Ryan, thanks for joining me to talk about your deal. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me on.
Yeah, no, this is really, really, really exciting. And I have my own thoughts about why it's exciting, but I'll save those for a few minutes. So for everybody watching, like just kind of give us a big picture. Like what was this property that you bought? How did it come to you? Some of the big broad details.
Yeah, this was a property that had come to me through a targeted mailing list, and it was a duplex, 3 bed, 1 bath. It's about 2,200 square feet, so about 1,100 square feet on both units. Um, and it was an exciting property because it is in a really unique location. So I live in Morgantown, West Virginia. So we have a university here, we have a hospital here. We have a football stadium here that people, come to for games. And the house sat in a really nice neighborhood for a student rental and a student rental location, which it's in. It was very well taken care of, which is not the case for a lot of the student rentals you see around here. And it also sat within about a mile to a mile and a half of the hospital, the football stadium, and the downtown campus. So it's in a really, really good location. And so I got really excited about it when I saw it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were just sending your letters, which you had been doing consistently up to that point. So when this person contacted you, this seller, did you kind of have a feeling right off the bat, like, oh, this seems more like the kind of person I can work with, or did it not seem like that right away? Or what was your first impression, I guess?
Yeah, so Dan, we'll just call him by his first name. Dan is the seller that I worked with, and he was a very, he's a very amenable person, very personal person, but he was very meticulous. He was asked a lot of questions and was very, wanted to know why I was asking things or doing things and what my strategy was. And as the longer and more I've got to know him, the more I just realized that's his personality. He's got a, accounting background and he does financial analysis for the university, and he's just a very detail oriented, very meticulous person, which is it's funny because although I have to be detail oriented, I don't naturally come detail oriented. So the dichotomy between the two is a little interesting. But yeah, he seemed like somebody I could work with. He was, he was the type of person that once you explained it and were open and honest and upfront with what your plans were and kind of what why you were doing what you were doing, um, you could get him to see the vision that I wanted him to see. But it came with a lot of explanation and a lot of whys. But yeah, he's been a pleasure to work with.
Yeah, excellent. So, how long, like when you think about when you first talked to him to the day you closed, what was the overall kind of time frame for that?
I can't remember when I first initially contacted him. I could probably go back in my notes and look, but I'm guessing and we're sitting now around month 5, maybe even 6 from the time we began conversations till
Yeah,
when we finally closed last month. So it was a long process. There was a lot of things to work through, a lot of questions he had. But again, as you talk about pretty extensively. That's a lot of the work. It's seller relations, it's people relations, um, and it's been beneficial because it's a lot easier negotiation now as we're dealing with this going forward.
yeah,
As I've gotten to know him.
yeah, absolutely. I often think that, yeah, I mean, it could be weeks of kind of slow dancing with this person until you get even a signed purchase agreement, and then obviously you got work to do after that. And I think that that's what's, I mean, one of the things that makes me proud when I talk to you is that a lot of people would sort of bail on that process, and say, boy, this, this slow dance is not sure this is going anywhere, or this is taking a long time. If I repurpose this time, there's opportunity cost to this time, right? Maybe I should be talking to more people differently. Um, but you really invested in that, and that worked out really well for you. So can you tell us just like some of the broad strokes of like what did the final deal that you came to end up looking like? Terms, price, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it's a deal that is I feel like is a fairly good deal, but it has the option to extend, which is my favorite part about it. So we ended up closing around. I got some notes here, so if I'm looking down, that's why. We ended up
Yeah,
closing it around at 278. I would say that probably market value of the house is probably closer to 240, 250 right now. But we went a little higher because I got some terms that I was happy with. So we went 4% interest only payments, and 15% down. And we do have a 2-year term, which is a very tight window, but we have an option to extend that out. And part of that came about from seller relations and the fact that he is very much a person who is trusting once you earn the trust. And so he was very hesitant to have a longer term out the gate. But he seems like a person who very much, as we went through that process, that 4 or 5 months, is very, I trust him a lot. And I think he trusts me a lot. And so we've come to a kind of an agreement that, and in the language in our deed and title, that can be extended out as we get to that point. And so I think the term will go longer, and I was comfortable with that because the language we put in. But that's the those are the numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And the notion of seller financing, I'm guessing maybe he didn't come to the table with that and say, hey, here's what we should do, that you um, facilitated the conversation in that direction, which is, of course, a major part of what we focus on in the deals workshop. How did that go? Like, how did it come up? And was he immediately sort of receptive to that, or was there like a little pushback, or how did that go?
There's definitely pushback, and he was definitely curious and wanted to look into it further. But he fit all the boxes, right? So he's a semi, he's not, in his 70s or 80s, but he's close to retirement age. He has a farm that's about 2.5 hours away that he shares with his brother. And he goes down there, every couple of weekends in a month to do some work on the farm. So he had this house in town, which he used to live in, that he's still having to go and maintain and take care of. And he was taking care of the farm. He's getting close to retirement age, and he really wanted to, have some residual income, but not the headache of the house. So he fit all these boxes, right? And so as we got down the road and we got to kind of getting to putting something in a purchase sales agreement, I pitched two options, the traditional financing and then the owner financing. And then as I talked to him, I said, I think this is a really good way for you to have residual income towards retirement. You're going to retire in the next couple of years. You don't have the headache of this house anymore. You can focus on your farm in Philippi. You can enjoy yourself and still get payments. And so I think that once he was able to look and see that I wasn't scamming him, he really felt a lot more comfortable with it. So I think an initial hesitation, but I think because of all the reasons I just outlined, that reasons why it wasn't a force pitch, right? I didn't force owner financing on him. I gave him the option and told him why I felt it would really fit his needs and lifestyle. And so after that, we were great. It was good. It was just getting the details down and closing the deal.
Yeah, fantastic. So when you think of the property itself now, like, do you have a bit of a vision for what you're going to do with it? Ways you're going to run it better physically, managerially? What's your plan?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things I'm getting up to speed on is my first rental, and so I'm trying to get some of that landlord, my landlord legs underneath me. But I think I can be more efficient than he was. He's very meticulous and detail oriented, but I think Brandon Turner says, firm but fair when you're a landlord. He was
Yeah.
he was just very fair. There was not a lot of firmness.
Yeah.
So he had markets that were half market rent. So I've already raised the markets to I've already raised the market rent. They were 500 and 600. Market rent's probably around 1,000 to 1,200, and I have,
Oh, wow.
as of right now, 850 and 925. So I'm still from where it was, and will continue to as we go forward. Additionally, it's zoned as a single family, but it's grandfathered in, and so it's a multifamily and a single family zoning. And there's a a 2-car garage that's being unused, which would be perfect for like an efficiency apartment space. And with it being so close to the hospital and the downtown campus, it'd be a perfect spot to
Mhm.
have a small efficiency apartment for people to come in and come out. So, and then even at that, at a minimum, those are kind of my vision. But even at a minimum, at a baseline for what it is now, it's a really great property. It's well taken care of already, and in a really good neighborhood with a good location. So even if nothing else happens with it, it's a good rental.
Yeah, fantastic. So I wanted to shift and talk not so much about the deal, but like your experience of going through this process, I guess, because I know, just since we know each other, like you've been very busy with other parts of life as well. Yet at the same time, you were able to make this happen. So can you speak at all to just sort of that little bit of of your experience with this? Like, was it hard to keep going in the face of, like, got a demanding job, the family, all that kind of stuff that a lot of people can relate to?
Yeah, it really was. I came to before I signed up for the course, I came to a webinar you had at the beginning of 2022, at the end of 2021. And a lot of what I had talked to you about is lack of consistency. I get ideas started, and I tend not to get that ball across the line on some of these bigger projects that are side projects. And so one of the big things I really wanted to work on was consistency and finishing. So when we got to this point, about, for some context, about the last month or two of the negotiations, I took a new job, which was very stressful and took up a lot more time than it had been in my old job. And I had to find a way to continue that progress, right? And it was stressful, but I think the biggest thing is, you talk a lot about, is just, what's the next action? What's the next thing to do that. And then I kept doing that and doing that. And sometimes there was a little longer gap than I wanted to between those. But as long as I kept doing something, I got it to the finish line. And so I was really proud of myself. I don't want to be, braggadocious, but I was proud of myself that I got it to the finish line and finished it. And now I'm a property owner and a real estate investor. So
Absolutely. And that speaks a lot to one of the main things I feel really proud of you about too is, so just to speak from my perspective, I guess, for a second, as a coach, when people come into a program, they kind of go into three buckets. Like one is like, they don't really show up, or if they do it, they're kind of invisible in the shadows. Then there's people who have kind of like bursts of like they're there and then they're not, and then they're there and they're not. And then there's other people, and I would put you in this third category, who show up, and even when life gets in the way or slows it down, they kind of keep doing the reps, keep doing. It's like investing in the process, kind of. And when I see those people, like I said, I think you're in that category. I'm like, I know to myself, like, there's no way this isn't going to work for them. It might be a matter of time, right? It doesn't mean it's going to be tomorrow, but it's going to happen because there's an investment in the consistency of that process. And now that you remind me too of like what we talked about at the very beginning, like you really have demonstrated a tremendous amount of like consistency and stick-to-itiveness. And think back a few months to previous seller conversations you had that seemed promising and then like just didn't quite work out. But you were really keen to like extract the specific lessons from that. I remember there was one particular one that was like, I think I tried to force the seller financing thing a little too much, even when it wasn't a perfect fit for them. So that you took that lesson and you applied it. And then once you applied it in this case, with Dan, totally different results.
no, yeah, I agree, and I appreciate that. I feel a little bad because I feel like the last month or two I have not been as consistent as I need to be, and I'm excited that things are stabilizing. I can get back into it more in the conversations. But thank you for that. And yeah, and you're right. And I think you talk about this being an art, and I really do think it is, because it's a lot of reps, right? It's getting out there and doing it, and a lot of those early failures that I had were really useful for me for this conversation. And the one you're talking about specifically, I think a lot of the people that are trees and are in your group are very, you know, conscious of how they interact with other people, and that makes them good at the approach that you take. And I still remember that one, as I kind of forced it, and not only did I force it, I made it much more in my favor than their favor. And I still remember the email that I got back when they were just kind of like, "No, you're a jerk, and you're like, this is all about you. You didn't think about us at all." Kind of was the gist of the email, and that really hurt. Because I don't like being that way with people. I want them to know that I'm not trying to take advantage of them. I'm trying to work something out that works for both of us. And it was a really, really hard but a really good lesson for kind of how to make sure that you're appropriately bringing seller financing up to the people you're talking to. But yeah, it's been a process, but I'm happy I'm here, and I'm excited for the next what the next couple of years bring.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kudos again to you for extracting that lesson, making sure it didn't get lost on you, and then really literally applying it the next time as well. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like you just said, like, I'm a real estate investor now. I got this thing done. And in less than a year too, right? Like 9 months kind of sort of concerted effort working with us and working on this. But so as we record this today, our market is kind of slowing down a little bit. But when you were sending your letters, when you met Dan, it was still a very hot, tight market. And there's so many people out there who say, "Oh yeah, right, seller financing. Like you can't get deals with seller financing. Why would anybody agree to 4% interest only? Why would they agree to only 15% down?" Yet you did that, or they'll also say, yeah, seller financing, that's great, but that's advanced. I mean, you need to do a few deals sort of the normal way first. And here you are, like your first ones right out of the gate were exactly that. And I think that that is something really to feel really good about.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I couldn't have done it without you in the course. I mean, I'm not here to make a pitch. I guess I'm doing that, but yeah, I mean, it's, to your point, without the context and the historical knowledge and your trials and failures that you talk a lot about, and getting there, and without having that information, I'm not sure that I could have done this on my own, or I could have, but it would have taken a lot longer, right? And so, by doing the course, I streamlined that process, and now my first deal is an owner finance deal, and what I feel like is a really good one. So yeah, it's been fun, and I'm excited to take this forward. And I think, to your point, um, I think owner financing, in the way that you approach it and Trees approach it, is it fits the person, and that's going to work in any market, um, because you're going to be working toward what their needs are, and that's why it fits. So yeah, I'm excited to continue to use this process. I think it works really well for me because it's a very people oriented process, which I love. I like talking to people. Um, and yeah, I'm really happy, and happy that you took me to the promised land, Jeff.
Well, you took yourself there. I'm glad I could show you the map though.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah. One final question. I think you are probably the single most clear person I know on the topic of like personal values and why and things like that. And you don't need to share more of the details of that unless you want to. But my question is, like, you knew why you were buying rentals, so can you just give us a quick sense for how does this acquisition you've made now, and then the momentum you're creating, how is this getting you closer to why you're doing everything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind to talk quickly about my values. I have a 4 value framework, and I've rank ordered them. And this has been a work over about the past 2 years that I've really been heavily working on. And so, for me, it's family, flexibility, community, and legacy, in that order. And the why for this rental is, as you said earlier, with momentum. This really gets me to where I want to be, where, down the line, I have the financial freedom to spend more time with my family, to have more flexibility to work on projects that really engage me. I'm highly involved in my community in a bunch of different ways, and so I'm going to have more time to do volunteer work or coaching, and continue to do that kind of stuff. And then eventually, all those pieces together come to form that legacy, which is, kind of, in my mind, kind of the purpose of why we live, to the people, the way we make people feel, and how we leave that on after we go. And this rental gets me to there to allow me to do a lot of that work that gives me a lot of passion and purpose. So this is step one, and it's step one to a lot of steps, but it's, you have to take that first step to go the rest of the way.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, congratulations again. Excellent
Thank you.
job. I'm super proud of you. I'm glad to see that you are proud of yourself in the humility sense that thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs have. But it's also easy for us to just kind of brush it off and be like, yeah, yeah, okay, whatever. I've got more busy things to do. And I think it's important to celebrate that. And even like you mentioned before, like, well, I haven't been as present in the last month since the deal closed. But sometimes we need to take a little breather, take a little nap, and come back to it, before long. And I think it's great to celebrate that and acknowledge that. So congratulations. I'm super excited for you.
Well, I appreciate it, Jeff, and I want to thank you and thank everybody in the group, who's helped me along the way, because they're a big part of this, and the community is excellent. The people that have taken my calls and my concerns and helped me talk through stuff, you and others as well. So thank you, thank the group, and I'm excited for the future, and excited for the future for you as well as you continue.
Thank you. Thank you. Great job.
And Brum, thanks.